LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, See Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Lydia. My name is Lydia Khalil. Today I've got a gentleman with me. I know we've had a stream of women showcasing their gifts, talents, but today I've got a gentleman with me. And we are going to talk about his work. We're going to talk about mental health across the work that he does, and he covers quite a bit of Africa. So it is my pleasure to welcome Ugochi into today's episode.
Hi, Lydia. Thanks for letting me in on your show. Great show. I've watched a couple of your episodes, and I think they're really very interactive. And I will thank you for, continuously, putting this information out to, the general public. And also, again, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. I must admit, what sort of fascinated me was actually, I'm really into my women thing. I'm sure you would have gotten by now. With the work that you did, I think I read something about genitalia mutilation, and then you have this thing you post where you're talking about powerful African women. So I think those were the two things that sort of got me drawn into you.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's amazing what other people, and I was like, oh, I'm really curious about this man. Just because of actually I and since then I've been sort of watching your post, and I joined in a conversation you had about rape in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Weeks ago. So a lot of your work I find interesting, fascinating.
Thank you.
Really sort of looking, every time I see like yes.
That's exactly really good.
I'm rooting for you secretly, so I'm a secret.
That's really good. That is really good. I'm happy. I'm really happy. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I know we use social media for various things, but I think when we see things that are really important, issues that need to be talked about, and then I know we all complain about social media, but then I'm glad for it because it's able to transcend, and get everybody thinking. And I think even now in the pandemic, I sort of am one of these people who is encouraging everybody to actually see the good that has come out of this season we've had, and things like being able to join in conversations that we wouldn't have had the chance to. So if you'd done that program in Nigeria, I perhaps wouldn't have got to listen, to hear the stories, to come across the professionals that are on your platforms, not only in Nigeria, but I think across really inspirational
thank you.
stories. So well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lydia. Thank you. It's just so I think it's more passion and finding ways to be able to have an impact in the society. And from the African women in power group that you've been seeing, it's more for women. I think we need more women in leadership. We need more women in the front line of leading the society, leading the communities, and there has to be that swap and change. We do things in a certain way, and I think it's time to transform the way we do things, and also give the opportunities to women into leadership, girls, get them on top of their education, bring them forward. We need that exposure, and we also need to encourage more men to talk about these issues of women in leadership, and that will bring a proper transformation and change to also. And also to again, added to that, to again, and part of what I do is also the environmental impact of our society. Our environment is very key for us, and we only have one world, one place. It's important that we look after our environment, because if we look around, we can hear about the changes that are actually happening. There's climate changes. We're having air pollutions, we're having airborne disease, and also we're having we're having sea rise. The waters are rising. There are floods and people are losing lands. And that causes, when you lose your land, it means you have to encroach to other people's part of where they stay or live, communities, and that causes more conflict. So these are the things we're looking around in general. But the key thing is to put more women into leadership for the passion women have. Women drive that passion of leadership, and it comes directly from their heart. So we need to continue to push more women into leadership, and mentor the young girls to also and bring them up to stage.
So it's about challenging the stereotype that we've had for so long.
Absolutely.
Only
Absolutely.
men lead, but women lead differently. And I've got something at the end of my bio, which I take very personally, that if you educate a woman, you educate a nation.
Absolutely.
So to me, that is so real, because even if she's doing it from her home, she's leading her children, she's leading the next generation. And the more empowered she is to do that, the better the children would be, male or female. Okay. I'm going to read a little bit about you, because we've sort of gone into things that I was passionate about and things that you are as well. And then we can talk actually about how is it that we're looking after our environment now that COVID is here, and all of that, and how all of this impacts our well-being, not only physically, because we know COVID has, we're all trying to be virus-free, or at least avoid it, but also in this looking after ourselves, looking after the environment, looking after what we're doing with the world that we have. Okay. You are the founder of the Simple Bridge consultancy, with a demonstrated history of working with non-profit organizations and a minimum of 17 years experience building and managing programs, leading teams, supporting developmental initiatives, with a clear track record of success in youth development, women empowerment, and climate change, with an advanced expertise in building strategic and operational plans and corporate responsibilities, which we hear a lot about now. Every company has CPRs. Sustainability strategies, including securing strong standards to prevent and reduce environmental and customer harms by empowering consumers to take action to reduce their footprint. And we hear a lot about that, even when we fly, when even the local council asks us to reduce or recycle, not just throw everything away. So welcome again.
Thank you very much.
I'm actually going to go into your Facebook, then I can bring up
That's okay. That's
all the
perfectly all
the
right.
organizations that you work with. But share maybe a little, because this might encourage men, women, even young men coming up behind you.
Yeah.
What has caused you to join, to do all of this line of work that you've chosen?
I think for me, it's just like I said, it's the passion, and when you have the passion for your neighbors, your friends, people you don't know, um, then you can do things. When you have humanity in you, what that means is that you can do things. When you love people, when you're kind to people, it means you can do things. And I'm not saying you must have all this, but it's just that love for humanity that has pushed me into, you know, doing these things without looking backwards. So I'll put it in a great summary. It's just the love of humanity, you know.
Hmm. So you are driven by the love for one another. Yeah, that's what
Absolutely.
it says.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times when somebody looks at your CV or looks you up in LinkedIn, it covers quite a large range, and people might be thinking, you know what, I actually need a lot of money to do this.
Mm.
Uh, I need somebody to open the doors for me. I need somebody to, tell me which form to fill for funding, for example. But for you, it's sounding like it's something that what you're saying is actually, if you're driven by passion, driven by a need, then everything else will come into place. Yeah. Good.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. You said that
Uh-huh.
correctly.
A good summary. Yeah, because a lot of times people are like, I really
You
want to
did,
do this,
yeah.
I want to do this, but I don't know how to go about it. But what you're saying is that if it sits inside of you, if you're driven by a need,
Absolutely.
and that need isn't about your need, is about what the other person needs, then it all can come together. Okay.
Absolutely.
Um, I think when I look across your work, my sort of passion is to get people to become self-aware. Yeah.
Yeah.
And self-awareness leads to us looking about how we do things. Yeah, how we make decisions. We look back to check if it's something behind us that is making us the way we are now. Is it something in the present? And then how do we change? And a lot of times we don't consider mental health, I think,
Hmm.
or our mental well-being. Um, Even if it's just stress, we're just like making it through each day. I guess across, because I look at your work and then it's across, nations. What do you think people in general, like from your experience, when you're talking about mental health and well-being, what do you think they think it is?
I think that a good question. There's a stigma to mental health. Once you're tagged as somebody who has mental health issues, what that means is that you're not part of the society anymore. What that means is that you cannot integrate the way everyone else needs to integrate. You're actually sidelined when you're tagged as someone who suffers from mental health, which I completely believe it's completely wrong, and there needs to be more awareness on how we define mental health and how we can also manage people around us that has mental health. Not just manage them, but bring them closer to us. in regards mental health issues too.
Okay. So I guess for us, when I say mental health, I mean your mental well-being. Yeah. And then there are some people who are suffering from mental illness. And this like goes on a spectrum from somebody suffering from mild anxiety, mild depression, all the way to diagnosed with bipolar or schizophrenia. But what I'm hearing you say is that when people hear that this person might be unwell mentally, they go to that 100 place and think it's schizophrenia, it's a form of unwellness that we can't
Yeah.
we can't manage. It's always something extreme.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your experience across nations, would you generally say in Africa it's better? We have it here, but we have the services to manage.
Yeah.
But say in Africa now, or I don't want to say Africa because it's a big continent, but just
Yeah.
in your work, in your experience, how does it feel? Does it feel like this is an issue we need to address? Does it feel we can, there are systems in place there that can manage these things? Because I don't want it to look like it's only in the Western way that
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
a way of managing,
Yeah.
these issues.
Yeah. In Africa, it's more awareness.
Mm-hmm.
There is no awareness when it comes to mental health. You can ask the average man who's quite knowledgeable about mental health, and he will not be able to define what mental health is.
Mm-hmm.
So the key thing about mental health issues in Africa is something that is not acknowledged, and the only way it can be acknowledged is through awareness, not just awareness in the big cities, but awareness in far communities, in local communities, in villages, and to be able to explain to them, to make them understand and give them that awareness of what mental health is. And I believe that is the first step of addressing mental health issues in places like Africa. um like I've just said, the reason I'm saying that is because there is no awareness of what mental health is, and it's time we start putting that out and educating people, like I said, not just in the main cities but the rural areas, going far and wide, to make them really understand the impact of mental health, and the environments, and how things can be brought forward when it comes to their own health. There's a lot of distraction in Africa, so for you to actually recognize mental health, it's a big challenge.
Okay. When you say distraction, something goes up for me. It could be
Yeah.
the noise. It could be, the busyness of it. Because
Okay.
cities in Africa can, really, really be buzzing. But what do you mean by that word when you say the distractions?
And firstly, Africa, it's mostly the infrastructure, infrastructure, means of communication. Once you don't have a proper infrastructure, how do you communicate? Means of communication is actually broken down. The distraction to also is also the economical impact of lives of individuals also in Africa. So there's a lot of things that are not in place that causes that distraction from really understanding and focusing on what that mental health you know, issues actually are. It's until we can get that balance of building a proper infrastructure whereby communication can be passed on to, every single individual with one click of the fingers through the best means of communication, gadgets and technology. Then we can get away from the normal day-to-day distraction of no electricity or no water supply or no food to eat and stuff like that. So there's a lot of distraction when it comes to learning in a place like Africa.
Mhm. Yeah, because I always use Maslow hierarchical needs, that if our basic, food and shelter needs are not met, it's sort of difficult actually to go away into our
Yeah.
physiological needs. Yeah, so that's what you're saying, that a lot
Yes,
of
absolutely.
yeah, the basic needs are not met, so it's
They're not
difficult.
met.
Yeah, so of course your physiological and psychological needs become secondary, because
Absolutely.
somebody has to eat. The infrastructure isn't there, and there was there is. I interviewed another gentleman who was saying that in a country like Nigeria, the amount of people who are actually registered as psychiatrists is very low. And is it that actually even the people who practice it, there is stigma attached to that profession for them, so they would rather practice without it being widely known that this is what they do. So there's a lot of work to be done in sort of bringing the awareness and making people understand that actually we need to have a balance between our physical mental needs,
Yeah.
and how do we do that? And I'm going to ask you something which I know might throw me out of the water. Some of our practices, when I mean some, I identify as African, also can impact mental health. Something like um, the when I mean practices like the genitalia mutilation now. Yeah, that happens when children are quite young.
Yeah.
Um, and it's such a known practice, but practices like these can cause mental illness, I think,
Yeah.
because some of it is quite traumatic to the child. And I've heard in some places where actually after it's done, the woman is sort of sewed up and it's only opened again when she has babies. So I can't imagine the pain and the trauma that goes with that. And a lot of women become physically damaged by that practice,
Absolutely.
which means that, of course, their mental health would be impacted. So that is one thing I'm sort of making an assumption around. But is my assumption true? Because
Yes.
that you work in.
Yeah, it's clear. Clearly very, very true. I don't think I won't put them as assumptions. These are facts of reality. When you have such things inflicted on someone, be it a male or female, you're inflicting pains, and technically you can look at that as an abuse. That's torture, to be honest. That could torment you, and with all that in place, you're bound to have that post-traumatic stress from having such an awful ordeal. So this, it's not an assumption, but it's the reality. It's the reality of it. And many young ladies who have actually gone through this are scarred by life, and this is a memory that they have in them for a long period of time. So I'll say again, it's not assumption. It's inhumane, and it's something that needs to be stopped immediately. It does not justify anything whatsoever. FGM is wrong, and it needs to stop. And I also believe there needs to be a law guiding that system in Africa, whereby if that takes place, then it becomes a crime.
Yeah.
So again, repeating the same thing you say, you're not it's not an assumption, but it's the reality. It causes stress.
Mm-hmm.
It could cause mental health. It could be traumatic. It could be a scar. It's something that you could remember for the rest of your life. So it can cause post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's a serious thing, and I believe it needs to stop.
Mm-hmm. So that I'm using that because that's a widely known practice, and it's actually done across Africa. I think some nations in particular, it's mandatory. Some nations, it's done in certain tribes. So when I'm talking about practices, we do have all those type of practices that, apart from the environment, apart from what life might throw, apart from, we know some people suffer mental illness because of hormonal, issues. These are things that other humans are doing to other humans that are causing traumatic experiences that are damaging to one another. So I think also those practices, are they difficult to challenge?
They're not difficult to challenge. It's just more of that. First of all, it's more of awareness. But the key question there is that where is that awareness going to?
Mm-hmm.
Because most of this awareness should be going towards the rural communities, and they have no means of communication. They have no means of TVs or internet access. Then how do they know this is actually wrong?
Mm-hmm.
So that dissemination of information is not reaching the right source of people. So if we can focus on rural areas, the interiors of rural areas where these activities really take place, then we know that we're hitting a tiny dent from the issues of what is going on. So there's no communication, there's no means of communication. We can't reach out to people the best way we can. And why is that? Because the infrastructure is not really there. So we can only just say it out and continue to talk about it, give the awareness as much as we can. But the big question is, how can we take it down to where these things are actually happening?
So what you're saying is, how do we address it at the root?
Absolutely. A good summary.
Yeah. How do we address it? Because some of these things are quite deep in the system. Yeah. These are systematic beliefs. These are things that have been practiced for hundreds of years. And you hear that even when they move, abroad and move to parts of the Western world, they still carry these practices along with them, because this is just what we do at home. It sort of resonates with identity, who they are, the authenticity of the woman, because who is going to marry her if this hasn't been done? We're talking about it impacting the family, and then they sort of being now outcasts. They've been outed.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing. So for you, it's important to go to the root of the problem, but which is difficult.
Absolutely.
But along the way, we just keep making a noise about it, and hoping that change will come. Is there something that we who sit on this side, because people are going to watch this program who live in Africa, who live on this side, what is it that we can do? Because, a lot of times I think, yes, it would be nice if the government could do it, if, they were caring about people in the rural areas, so we call them grassroots people. But what is it that we can do in our own little way? Because, I like one of the names of your company called Ripple, because if you drop something, then there's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So what can we do that
Absolutely.
can cause a ripple effect? What is it that we can do?
Yeah. I think you said something very key from your question. We can't always depend on the government to make changes. Governments have, things they're carrying out. They have duties they, are putting in place. They might not be able to do everything in 360, and that's why we have people like myself and yourself and other people to come on board and talk about these things too also. But the main thing too also is more gathering informations, data of where these things particularly are happening. If as an individual we have the access to informations and datas, what that means is that we can act fast and be able to pinpoint locations of where where this particular, I'll call it, crimes are actually taking place, and readdress them. So what I'm saying is that if we have access as individuals, or individuals who want to make an impact towards FGM, what we'll be needing is more data, informations of where these things are happening, how we can reach them, places they're actually taking place, offenders and stuff like that. So we can, if this information's at hand, because now we're in an open world whereby information is easily collectible. So if governments can provide individuals who are interested in this cause data where these things are taking place, then I think as individuals we'll be able to act as quick as we can.
So the more knowledge, is more information that we share, with one another, then we can make changes with help, getting other people involved, then we can make changes to our world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I see on your page that you do training for the UN, or you're part of them? When I mean
No,
UN,
but what is this is that there are sustainable development goals. That's the SDG goals, and the sustainable development goals is for everyone to practice. Is for everyone to play a part. And the sustainable development goals are 17 goals, which are global goals, which all countries and nations have signed up to. So what we do basically, or what I do basically, is work in line with those particular goals. And like for education, it's under Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is education, which I'm working in line as with the United Nations too, with the United Nations goals. Then you have 5 is equality, which is also part of United Nations goals, and you have 13, which is environment, which is under also United Nations goals. So basically everyone can work under the United Nations goals, which are the sustainable development goals. And if we can join force and work alongside those 17 goals, I think we'll be able to move the world into a better place, and for us and for our children's children, for a greater future.
Mm-hmm. So these goals are things that you implement in your work?
Absolutely. Not just implement, and we also share these informations out to individuals to join and be able to take 1 or 2 goals and push those goals into the community and into areas where they feel is really, really very important.
Okay. So somebody can contact you, pick up, hear all the goals,
Absolutely.
sort of zero in on one or two, and they would then implement them in their own way. They will have an expression
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And your logo has sort of like different colors, sort of having almost like a rainbow
Okay.
concept, I think. That's sort of intertwined with these sustainable goals from.
Which logos are you actually referring to?
I think the Sustainable Development logo.
No, the Sustainable Development Goals are the logos run by the United Nations.
Okay.
That the logos run by the United Nations. Yeah.
Okay, so
everyone can fly it. You can fly it. Everyone can fly it. Is to promote those goals.
Okay.
So we can have a better future and a better world for ourselves and our children's children.
Okay. So what is so fascinating for you about, we hear it a lot, keeping your environment, sustaining the environment, recycling, footprints. What is it about that resonates with you?
The main thing here is that we have, I'll always say, we have one world, and it's best to keep that world okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's best to make it suitable for us to live in. When I say suitable for us to live in, is build some kind of structure in a way that doesn't cause harm to the environment itself.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at plastic today, that's becoming one of the biggest ocean pollution in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually killing the sea animals.
Mm-hmm.
We're losing them because they're actually feeding on plastic. So, and it also boils down to corporate responsibility on how we can build up a supply chain that actually works for the world at large. We know clearly plastic is not working, so why don't we think of something that's more sustainable,
mm-hmm.
rather than continue using plastic? And this is where the corporate body comes in to change the way they act and change the way they run their businesses to. If you also look again at cars, that causes the CO2 emissions. The world is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. There's pollution. We're finding it difficult to breathe in many ways, and with the kind of pollutions, it's airborne disease are easily transferable through that. So it's very important to at least cut these things down to zero within a certain period of time, which means that it's important to have, efficient energy like electricity, electric cars, electric bikes, to be able to, which are very, very sustainable rather than using fossil fuel or gas. So it's just, protecting our environment and making more things more sustainable for ourselves and the planet itself.
Okay, I can sort of get the big things like in certain parts of Africa now, water is sold in a little plastic bag. And of course, people just drink it and they put the plastic bag on the road. So a lot of the drainage systems are blocked, with these little bags. I sort of get that, okay, the plastics we use are a lot. And yes, we spend a lot of, or we have a lot of waste products that we could do differently. But to be honest, when I hear some of these things, I almost feel like we're regressing. Yeah. We're going back to when we used to have Cokes in bottles and milks. The man would deliver the milk, and then you give them back, and then they'll wash.
Yeah.
And then when I'm hearing electric cars, I'm thinking, oh, this is like we're going back in time now.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because you buy Coke, you can recycle the bottles, give the bottles back, and once the content is over, you return the bottles back, and that circle of interchanging hands of the particular product, rather than putting it in a waste in a waste dump. But also, still, in as much as there's corporate responsibilities, we have to also take it at hands to be able to do things ourselves, in a sense that cleaning our environment and bringing up the awareness of recycling. We've got to really talk about these issues too also. um, we need to talk about these issues too also. We need to find ways to be able to be of impact to the community too, as a whole, within our community as a whole. Make weekends where we can clear up the litters around our environment, clear up the plastic around our environment, make produce more campaigns, make more campaigns out, do a lot of shout outs for people to understand what the impact of what plastic is doing to our environment. But it's a global challenge. But if we can continue to speak about these things and talk about them, I think we'll have that change. But I also believe that young people too we have to be able to engage young people into understanding how it is to actually look after the environment, what it takes to look after the environment, what they need to do to look after the environment. So we need to re-educate young people too about the pollutions that's happening globally.
Okay. And when we talk about it, we talk about cars, giving airborne, can help with the spread of airborne diseases. And, even in the light of, COVID at the moment, the sea, you said at the beginning, like people, actually the sea coming up and people losing their land. We talk about the, how hot it is now, like in the
Yeah.
UK. It never used to be this hot, and certain parts of the Middle East, which they expect heat, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's actually unbearable. I know because I have that experience. And even in Africa, I think it used to be hot, but now we can really know that sometimes it's really, really hot. Now, when we are talking about all of these things, it can be scary for people in terms of, are we just going to wake up one day and all of it will have gone away? So how when you are talking about keeping the environment, sustaining the beautiful world we have now, is there a part of it that actually looks after how it will impact our mental health? So we're not now all sort of panicking that the world is going to explode, or the earth, or it's all going to come to an end. Because sometimes when people hear all these things on TV, can be, frightening.
Yeah, but if you look at the present situation now of the pandemic, that it's actually affecting a lot of people's mental health. So it's and the pandemic is all part of one big thing. Like during the pandemic, when there was a full-time lockdown, it was said that the environment healed within a period of time.
Yes,
It means there were no cars outside. You know, people were doing what exactly was right, and the earth healed for that period of time. But for the fact that we've all come back out again, you know, not doing what we're meant to do, the earth is back to a certain stage. So
Mhm.
it's all about letting the natural resources of the world um, develop and grow at its own stage. Like deforestation, where you find many people going to cut down trees and not understanding what the implications of cutting that trees will do, the negative impact it has on you cutting down trees. So,
Mhm.
like, if you still look at the pandemic, um, the post pandemic, the COVID that has taken place, a lot of people have actually been mentally not very well, based on the massive transition, the massive transformation. And then, but now it's a stage that we have to understand that it's important that we look after our self health and well-being, protect the next person, based on the pandemic that is on at the
Mhm.
moment. So if you look at it, still everything still boils down to being humane, being human. How can
Mhm.
we possibly be human? What are the things that we need to do that will help the next person? If I'm driving my car around the whole of the city, what that means is that I'm causing more pollutions. What do I have to do? Is ride a bike, because me driving my car at that period of time might cause someone some kind of illness, and that illness also leads down to that person's state of mind and mental well-being. So it's a vicious circle. It all depends on how we act, how we behave, and what we think generally is good for our environment, because that's the same environment that we actually live in. So,
Mhm.
like I said, it's looking after our environment the best way we can. If we don't know how to, it's best to go do a research and see what's good for the planet and the environment we live in.
Okay, so it's about all of us doing our little bit to help.
Absolutely.
I will be honest with you. If somebody says, "Now I have to ride a bike across London," I'm gonna no, 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 like, okay, I can get it for like half an hour. I'm not going to have an immediate change of lifestyle, to be honest.
Yeah,
Uh, but I can do other things. Yeah, I can.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I can. I can do other things if I can't do that kind of drastic. Uh,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, but
Or
you also need to look at that. Sorry, interrupting. You also need to look at the fact that if you cycle, that is, keeping your health in a certain level. It means that you're actually doing a form of exercising, and that also helps your mental state of mind. If you walk rather than jump in the bus, gain a bit of fresh air, that actually helps your mental state of mind. So the more we begin to enjoy more of what nature has given us, rather than commuting, driving our cars and causing more emissions. I understand that you cannot drive all the way from where you are to cross countries. Yeah, that's totally impossible. But when it's needed at the most, and when you think it's important that it will help the environment, or say for example, short distance you're going from here to the supermarket, you don't need to drive. You can absolutely take a walk. And if you look at the impact of taking walks and cycling, that helps our mental state of mind too. And I think it's something that we have to really consider in many ways in regards our mental state.
okay, so if we do these our little bits,
Yep.
so instead of getting into the car to buy just milk and bread, because sometimes I put my hands up, I can do that. So it's not my weekly shopping. Um, I will think about I will getting into the car when I can walk. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and because really, I think the car bit is a lot of it is habit. Uh,
Yeah.
we've developed or planned our life around getting into the car and doing it that way. So to sort of think, okay, do I really need to drive? I could walk. I have been for a walk today, for
That's
example,
really good.
and can say, actually, I need to get something quickly for the shops for dinner. I don't need.
It's really good.
I'm not buying bottles of water or heavy. I don't have any heavy lifting to do, so
Yeah,
I can walk. So it's
that's really good.
I think it's about doing these little things that we can.
Yeah.
Sure, we recycle. Even with the plastic bags, I think I was good at the beginning, but like now, after business with the number of bags. So
Exactly.
things like that. That's what.
True.
If we all take responsibility to do something small, it will go a long way into keeping our world
Absolutely.
and making it a better place for generations coming behind to enjoy.
I agree.
Oh, great. What would you? I mean, I'm looking at your page, thinking, what can I ask now? I think I'm going to leave it to you to. I know I can hear from you from the way you're speaking about it, that this sustaining the world, not the world, but sustaining your own little part of the planet.
Absolutely.
Sounds important. The work that you're doing across various organizations is important to you. But what haven't you shared with us today?
I think one of the things that is really key is young people, the youths, because the young people, they play a very important role to all the process. It's how do we get them on board? How do we keep mentoring them? How do we teach them? They are, I would say, they are the front line of what we're trying to achieve. We might not see the end of technology. We might not see the end of how the environment has fully healed, but they will. So the future is actually for them, and what we are doing is to prepare that basement for them to operate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also very important that we encourage young people out there to come out and talk about issues that concerns them. If they can't, we find ways to get them talking and to be able to understand their own state of mind. And if we don't keep that communication with them, that's when that become sad. They get anxieties, depression. So we have to really bring them out from where they're hiding. Technology has taken over them completely, and you find that young people are mostly on their phones 24 hours, but they're not accessing the right kind of information. So it's important we also take 50% of our time to really find ways that we can bring up young youth cell and start teaching them about global economics, financial matters, environmental issues, but teach them in such a way that they would understand what is going on globally. And the way we used to teach in the past, that has changed prior to COVID. Now it's all about accelerated learning. How can a young person learn within a short period of time and gain that knowledge? Because once you have the knowledge, It means you can do things. It means you can go into deep research and create, because you have every single thing out there on the internet for you to use.
Mhm.
But we have to defocus them and find ways to bring them to the table, take them away from their smartphones and show them the right key information that runs a global system.
Mhm. Oh, because actually all of this that we're doing is for them. That's what you're saying. That they're the
Yes,
ones coming behind us, and they have to participate.
absolutely.
If they join now, then the decisions we make will have their voice. It will
Absolutely.
have how it's going to be better for them, how they see the world, how they experience um, the world, and what their needs are.
Yeah,
Because now, if they're only using social media for entertainment, or
yeah,
this big thing, TikTok. I didn't even know TikTok
yeah.
was.
I'm still trying to use it. I can't.
You have
I,
to do
I've tried. I failed.
um, so instead of just using it for entertainment, I think also one of the good things that has come out of COVID is um, this technology, like this ability now for us to exchange information quite
Yeah,
easily. People can study online. People don't have to like travel from
yeah,
here to Leeds for a meeting, for example, and
yeah.
waste a whole day for 1 hour's meeting, sleep and come back. Um, I don't think that happens to you, but like you go out in hours of traffic, just to have 1 hour, meeting. Like, what was that about? But like now, the world is literally at their fingertips.
Yeah,
They can access information. They can have a voice. They can use what is available to them now for their own good, where
absolutely.
they're sitting. And I think also it's in a way our responsibility, which is what you said, for us to. I I like one of your companies called Simple Bridge.
Consultancy.
Yeah. So like, how do you think we can make that simple bridge for them where they feel they can connect with us? And when I mean us, not necessarily me and you, but
Yeah,
um, the generation, because we are the generation that is in government now. We are the generation that is speaking. We are the generation
yeah,
making rules. The prime minister is in his mid, 50s. So how can we make them know that we're available to them? How can we reach out to them?
I, I think from my view is more of tapping into what they enjoy doing best. If they enjoy social media or TikTok, it's best to find how can they be creative within that forum that will benefit them and benefit others. So it's tapping into a source of their creativity. Whatever creativity they have, if we can tap into that source, we can bring them closer. You just can't tell a young teenager, oh, you need to love the environment. They don't know what that is, to be honest. But if the teenager is very interested in TikTok, you can use that as a medium of communication, of tapping into their mindset. So it's all about tapping into what you enjoy doing and bringing that into the table and helping them elaborate more on what you're doing that could help to touch the lives of people. So it's just basically their interest.
Okay. So if they're using their interest, so we're not to reach out to their generation. But
Absolutely.
how do we reach out to them? How do we um, maybe even mentored some of them.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Accessible to them.
Sorry, say that again.
How do we make ourselves accessible to them?
I think one of the things too is, maybe through schools, through educational centers, through colleges, through universities, we can, be able to liaise with the heads of all the necessary schools, and tell them what we can offer, or tell them what we're proposing. And I think that should be a first stage of engagement towards young people.
Okay, thank you. We've come to time. Is there anything
Thank
else?
No, I'm just thanking you for giving me this opportunity on your platform to be able to speak. I'm very humbled and honored to be here. You're a great host, and this platform it's a great platform, and
thank you.
it's something that we'll continue to share and push on social media for it to get where it needs to get to. But you're doing a fantastic job. You're amazing, and I will thank you again for having me on here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Another interesting conversation, not necessarily strictly the way my guests have been, but it has been very enlightening even for me. It's great to see somebody doing such amazing work across Africa and actually talking about the earth and its sustainability, which I think sometimes we sort of think, oh, it's only for people who are a little bit on the end and taking it a bit extreme. But he's made it really simple for us today. So I hope, and I know you found this conversation as interesting as I have. Thank you for joining me again. My name is Lydia Khalil, and I will see you next week. Thank you.
LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, C Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.